brighter one?
Oh, they're both beautiful. It doesn't matter. Your preference.
Okay, let's stick
Dealer's
with this one for now
choice.
because the logo, we need an actual transparent logo at some point.
Oh,
But
it's not transparent?
well, it's not. It might be. No, see, it's got this white background, but we'll do it another time. It's totally cool.
Okay, my
So,
bad.
so your point, which I 100% agree with, is that in Web3 and in many other industries, they need to pick a path. Um, could you contextualize that and then unpack that for a second? Because I want to talk about that.
Sure. I think a lot of people, they catch a buzz around Web3. Something catches their eye, whether that's investing in crypto, creating NFT art, metaverse stuff, VR stuff, whatever it is. And then they learn about like blockchain and this new internet, and they go down a few rabbit holes. And this is, the fourth industrial revolution, and this is the precipice of it. And when you hire someone or reach out to someone like me, like a consultant in the space or coach in the space, or even just like an agency. Like, I wonder how Gary V's company, what's he got, Banner 3? I wonder how
Vayner
they
3,
walk.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how they walk people through it. But I mean, really, there's limitless options. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the next 100 years of industry that's happening right now, that's unfolding before us. And you can get into so many things. I mean, literally, NFTs run the gamut from real estate to supply chain to escrow services to, I mean, they're pick one, they're all available to you. And so, as in my seat, what I try to do with people is just figure out like, what do you like doing now? And like, what's the best thing that we can give you a foundation for now that's just going to allow you to explore and unfold? But I think a lot of people that come from the classic, we say the Web 2 world, but you're used to knowing what the end is supposed to be so that you can like
Mm.
judge your metrics, right? And like with Web 3, like we don't know an end yet. We don't even the best thing you can do in a roadmap is be flexible.
Oh, interesting. The best thing you can do, I'm going to capture that real quick. And I'm trying to capture this in the comments so that we kind of have this in the video later. The best thing for your road map is flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie the Whelm Roach.
Mm-hmm.
So like to that point, I don't know if I like the overlay here. So what you're describing is like very normal advice for every other business, right? Like every other business knows. If we were to boot up a landscaping company, like I don't know, I'm gonna do landscaping, and then I'm gonna do like mowing, but then I think I'm also gonna like hang Christmas lights, and then I'm gonna do landscape design and waterscapes, and it's like everyone knows that that sounds ridiculous. If someone starts that broad and you're like, okay, so like what's first,
Right.
And why do you think it is that Web3 is endemic with everythingism? I'm just like, I'm everything. Like we saw a project. Well, I won't critique this particular project. I like this person. I like their project, but it was the everything project. And when you'd ask, what is it? They'd say, it's the Amazon of Web3. And you're like, what? Well, we've got a metaverse. Well, Decentraland, Sandbox, Spatial. You've listed yourself a few. Like they do metaverses, and that's different. And they were like, you could rent books, and I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
So why? So I guess question stands. Why do you think it's endemic in Web3 to not nail this down? Why won't they do it?
I think it comes down to ownership, honestly. I mean, of all the projects I've worked with, everybody wants to own the IP, and from being on the inside, especially a couple years into this thing and going through it, like if your end game isn't interoperability, isn't collaboration, isn't
Mm.
working with people, then you're going to be an island and you're going to fail. And right now, like islands are the thing. Like everybody wants to be the top island, the biggest island. And I just don't see success in a new peer-to-peer powered, decentralized, distributed system surviving that way.
Well, what's interesting about that is I just saw, well, it correlates to something I saw today. And, how familiar are you with the Forgotten Runes, the Wizards of Forgotten Runes project, NFT project?
I
It's
am
it says
not.
Gooby sister. You're grinning. You're grinning like, what does this nerd do? Does he play Dungeons and Dragons? Yes. This is a 8-bit NFT that I completely nerd out about. I still nerd out about it. And the floor is finally under half an ETH. And so I'm like dead serious about like, I think I'm just gonna like pull credit and get one of these. It's an 8-bit thing, and they're these rune wizards, and they're very quirky. It's literally like an old Nintendo game. And you're like, what is this? And they've made zero promises. They're just like, let's do this thing. And we do have a roadmap to like gaming, but we're not sure what. And so then they rolled this NFT out. The NFT never really mooned at all. It just stayed steady. But then they started like not even like rewarding with crypto. They started doing like internal culture things, which I think you and I agree are like better than any sort of airdrops and shit. Like they started rewarding people with badges and stuff for writing lore. And so there was this huge lore of these characters that started rolling out, and you're like, well, I mean, this is fun. And then that has like a runway of like 4 to 6 months before people are like, okay, well, what else? Well, they've done these meetups where they dress like they're wizards, and it started to turn into like a real, like, we're just nerd alert time, and we love it. And they really do love it. Well, overnight, yesterday, they just announced an interoperability function with a gaming platform, and they don't do game design, they do character design and culture design and story. And they had these nifty looking things, and you can basically connect your wallet of your character, and it's an 8-bit character, but the game is a 3-dimensional open world, high resolution video game. And suddenly you see this character that you've written all this lore for appear. Like, you've seen the gaming for like the Bored Apes. Well, they look like they're Bored Apes, and that's how they were like high resolution. There was this kind of like moment where interoperability suddenly made sense to me, that they can just port in even an 8-bit. There's some algorithm that takes it and up renders it into this character, and you recognize your character. And so that was the first vestige of a truly interoperable platform moment that I saw, that I was super impressed with. So let me ask you, like, do you know of like great interoperability plays happening gaming or not?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say Ready Player Me, you know,
Oh,
they're
I always forget about that.
yeah, Ready Player Me. I mean, I was really impressed with the graphics, but also, I mean, and I was just talking about this with a client, like when you invest a lot in your avatar, why would I want to have a different avatar in Sandbox, in Decentraland, in Face,
Exactly.
in Meta, I want my avatar, the one I built, the one that, and
Yes.
especially if I'm going to go so far as to buy digital assets for this thing, if I'm buying fashion and shoes and hairstyles and graphics and whatever, like the whole point of this was so that your digital assets traveled with you. So I mean, and I
Yes.
almost picture like the bar scene in Star Wars when they like walk in and there's like
Yeah, yeah.
every different type of alien hanging out. Like, and I think that would be more fun. Like, people should be able to even like PFP projects, I would love to see interoperability go that far where there's some, maybe when you upload your NFT to Decentraland, maybe it has a flavor of Decentraland to it,
Yes.
but it's your character of like,
Yeah.
whether that's why can I a crypto kitty, or I can't even like think of a PFP project, which is
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
absurd
yeah.
right now.
Let's
But
do
my head's too
BG
I was doing too much
Doodle.
Web3 stuff today. I'm I'm fried.
Well, so like Doodles has really intrigued me as a project. I've been wanting to own a Doodle for a while,
I
and
love
the price
doodles.
point hasn't been there for me. And once like Pharrell, and I think you can just knowing your aesthetic, like the design of that world is super fun. And when Pharrell came on as like, I don't know, creative advisor or something like that, it really did take on this new thing. And they had this thing where Doodles, the original PFP, was built on Ethereum, and they wanted to move to the Flow blockchain. Did you pay attention to any of that?
Not too much, but oh my gosh, I just went to their website and I just love their colors. I love doodles.
I
Like,
knew you
I
would.
know. They're
So,
coloring the world with joy.
well, if you watch that animation sold me. And FYI, I don't know if you and I, of all the times we've talked, I don't know if we've talked about the PFP I'm working on for our migration to State of the Spark.
No.
And but it's gonna be it's gonna be a dynamic PFP where you earn as you go through some of our course, because we're launching this resource library. Basically, we're going back to launching our training company. But I want to create community and badging components for finishing courses. And so that Doodles bought the Rick and Morty
Yes.
brand. And so that was a pretty big play. And so that they're going into entertainment. Well, check this out. If you're on their website, let's see here. Hang on. OG Doodles, Doodles 2. There used to be Space Doodles, the spaceport. Okay, so if you go under digital collectibles and go and drop down to the spaceport,
Okay.
tell me when you have that up, or I could bring my screen up either way.
Yeah,
but
you can share screen. So
okay, let me bring this screen up. And there's Jessica from our team. Jessica, this is the lovely Jacki Roach. We've talked about her before. Jessica's our awesome team member. Jessica and I met for her quarterly one-on-one today, and I was mentioning All Is Possible. And so we talked a little bit about our AIP experiment and stuff. But let's pull this up real quick. So I guess it's not launching, so something's not working. So they have this tool right here, and once you connect your wallet, this would be so much more fun if it loaded. But your PFP appears here, and then you pass through the duplicator, the DOO duplicator, and you hit a button, and it auto-generates like a dynamic PFP, a new NFT, if you will, but it's got different varieties of wacky, zany, very positive, uplifting space travel. And basically, you're enhancing the PFP to basically be new intellectual property setting up for their cartoon series and world building, if you will. And that's kind of what the duplicator is all about, too. Now, the duplicator, and it's this little goofy thing, and we bought a Genesis box, and you burn the Genesis box NFT, and you stick it in the button, and you get swag. Well, get this. The swag, the space thing, all these little amenities I'm talking about, they're built on the Flow blockchain. Mm-hmm. And Flow is owned by the same group that did CryptoKitties in the OG. And a gentleman, Ford Heacock, he works on the wallet, and he lives here in Lakeland. He's one of the wallet engineers for them.
Really?
Yes. I should introduce you guys. He's a super kind. He's like, I'm toxic masculine compared to how kind this guy is, right? Like, this guy is super sweet. He just had a kid, but he's big on Flow, and he always tells me what Flow is up to. And their number one goal is interoperability. Mm-hmm. And so you import your Ethereum PFP, and it creates other PFPs, and you can upgrade your character. And so, like, on the homepage of Doodles, as you were just seeing, let me just share, all of these elements that you see, the rocket boots, the puff jacket, the paint bucket, the sticky face, all of them you can buy, trade, and sell on Flow with your existing PFP. And right now, it's just fun and cool. But the point is that user base is basically generating the raw material for their show.
Yep.
Like, are we having fun? So Doodles is up there. Like, I'm a huge fan of Doodles. But you make a good point. Like, Ready Player Me, if I had my character of just Grant, and it got sucked into this 8-bit Forgotten Runes world, is there an algorithm that can render me as that?
Right.
And then can that same character show up in Doodles? Now, I might have to pay a penny for these. They're basically unique NFTs or an access fee of some kind. But I have been thinking about this for a long time. Now, do you know of anyone who's actually bridging, is interoperability has to be baked in from the beginning, or are there third-party services who build bridges just for interoperability? Like, what do we know about interoperability, really?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you're talking about interoperating. Like, off the top of my head, when you ask that, I think of like MoonPay, which is like,
oh yeah,
interoperating, credit cards and NFTs and Web3 and payments and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, are we casting the LinkedIn right now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just
Oh, you want? I can. We
No,
can
no,
stop
no,
and
no.
reboot.
No,
We're
no, no,
just about to.
no.
You're about to get
It's
weird, weren't you?
fine. No, not weird. It's just, I think people that have been in this industry for a long time, they're constantly straddling, this idea of mass adoption
Yeah.
and also building with integrity and building,
Mm,
sometimes I feel like we're in like the next 100 years here. Like, what's the rush to get this done in 3 months or 6 months or a year? When you are the ones responsible for building the foundation for our next workforce, labor force, the
that's
way the world's
huge.
going to relate. And I
That's
don't
good.
know.
That's a valid point. I think you're hitting on something that's so critical. The next 100 years. I like that you said that because this has happened so fast. We think that B2C projects that a lot of the entrepreneurs, let's be frank, a lot of the entrepreneurs you and I are surrounded by they are entrepreneurs who have been thinking for the last decade B2C.
Hmm.
They're thinking what's in front of the consumer. So and this is what I think what went wrong with all these NFTs. Let's build this, and it's the average consumer. The DAO idea of the community will make this happen, and we'll have a treasury, and suddenly we'll figure it out. And what you're getting to is there is still a need for some old heads to build just the highway, the pavement, and people think that Ethereum is there. Ethereum is it's all
Oh,
like
I had lots of fun with the Ethereum network today, doing all sorts of cleanup and paying
it's I mean, you were
outrageous
just talking
gas
about
fees.
ENS.
Yeah,
ENS, it's a great idea, but it is a cluster to figure out.
it was a lot today. I mean, honestly, just for example, so I took on a new client that's wants to launch an art project, we'll just say.
Hmm.
And you get stuck at this point where you're like, okay, well, what's going to make you different? And you can get into all these like philosophical conversations, but really at the end of the day, like, does this person have a wallet? Do they have whatever
Yes.
token they need to complete minting? Like, so the first step is always just like onboarding the really boring stuff. um
Yeah.
and so regularly I have to revisit doing this stuff that I haven't done in a while. Like, I haven't actually launched a collection in probably a year. So, and everything changes so
Hmm.
quickly. So I have to go through these things and do them all from the beginning. And actually, so we're starting with getting your ENS and then pointing that to a wallet. So, you got to create the wallet, create the account, get the ENS, point it. And it's not that hard when you start fresh, honestly. But I didn't. Like, I already had wellness.eth that has just been traveling around the metaverse for 4 years now,
Yeah.
or 3 years, whatever it is. And there's like just so much garbage I had to go through.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, I think just purchasing the ENS domain name for 1 year cost me, I think it was only like $5.43, but that was in gas. And then when I had to transfer that from one wallet to another, it was freaking $12 in gas fees. And like, you know, when I was ETH rich, like, none of this mattered. I was like, $12, whatever. But
Yeah.
now that ETH is like, been steady at pretty much 1,800 for how many months now?
Sure.
$12 hits a little different. So
Well, yeah, and it used to be. I remember in the early days, it used to be like it wasn't even listed in U.S. dollars at the time. It was listed in Ethereum. And you're like, I think there's enough zeros. It doesn't matter, you know. And now we're like, wait, I'm counting. It's like I feel like I'm counting pennies. I'm like, wait a minute, how
yeah.
much is that in USD? And I think that's a testament that the ETH experiment hasn't worked.
Yo, I thought when they went to proof of stake, like, gas was supposed to be gone. Like, what the
Preach.
heck? If you're not even doing proof of work anymore, what is going on back there?
I don't know, and they're talking about sharding was really a thing. So when they said, "Well, let's move from," the excuses I've heard since have been, "Well, no, we needed both to go to proof of stake and sharding because the price of these things is driven by network demand. So just because you're on proof of stake doesn't mean network load or block demand on the block hasn't
Yeah.
changed." And it's like, oh, well, why don't we? I don't know. But my point though is like the pace of these things are enough that I would imagine the average builder the average entrepreneur, does think I've got to rush, rush, rush. And if something's not working, they jump to the next thing. Going back to your original point of entrepreneurs in this space are not solving a problem that they care about. They're literally going, well, here's an opportunity. They're opportunists,
Yep.
but they're not committing like they would if it was the landscaping company and then getting out there and doing a value exchange worth doing. You know, like I'm going to do waterscaping and landscaping and lawn mowing. They knock on a front door and say, hey, would you give me X, Y, and Z to waterscape your property? It's like, no. Can I mow? Oh, sure. Here's $50.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're going for the $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 gigs instead of trying to find something that the average person would actually pay consistently for because it's a felt need. So to me, the era of us defying the basics of entrepreneurship are just like, those days are gone. We're not sold on that anymore.
And to your point, everybody thinks like, oh, when we get the bag, then we'll figure it out. And like you can take that right into life. I mean, go ask any person that has been like financially challenged at any point in their life if money was the answer. If money solved it. Because like it's never the solution. And I mean, I even think that's kind of what happened in Web3. Like you had so many people that for whatever reason were early into crypto, had enough Ethereum, and they blew it. They blew it. And it was because, they didn't really understand the value. And I'm not even totally excluding myself from this. So I'm not just being a hater. Like, I mean, I blew enough too. I paid $200 in gas fees for a $300 NFT one time. So I'm not the, the sharpest tool in the shed either. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, you have to get back to these principles of like, we need to like what you mentioned before. I mean, virality is everything. And I've even seen projects that are just like, let's get the dopest website, have everything looking amazing, get it out to the influencers, have them spread it. And meanwhile, like the guts of the project hasn't even been built yet.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, cool. You onboarded all these people, but you have no education to actually onboard them beyond like, I mean, and this is why I asked if we were on LinkedIn, because I'm not trying to offend anyone here, but I mean, honestly, if someone's buying an NFT with a credit card, what does that actually mean to them right now?
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Why does it even have to be an NFT?
Yeah. Yeah. Why? Well, and it's a weird moment in time because like I just saw this meme that wasn't really a meme. It was a headline. It's like Post Malone just paid $1.5 million for this piece of cardboard. And it was like a Lord of the Rings collector card in a case. People collect baseball cards and trading cards. And you're like, yeah, NFTs are valuable. See, I get the parallel. And in some ways, I saw this Lord of the Rings thing and something struck me. And I'm pro Web3. I'm pro digital has value. But when I saw this post, I was like, yeah, but that makes sense. And I was like, wait, why does this make more sense than an NFT? And to me, it comes down to expectations. All sales. You and I were talking about sales the other day and setting expectations. Expectations is everything. And when I buy a collector's card, that's a physical card, I know what to expect from that entire industry. I know what I'm getting into. And if it says at this point, it has 1.5 million in potential value because Post Malone bought it, there's a very strong zeitgeist understanding that, well, somewhere there's a collector's expo that you can go, you can take it to the antique roadshow, they'll value it and be like, well, but when it comes to NFTs, we've let people down more than we've fulfilled expectations. There's more disappointment than setting of proper expectations. If we would have gotten all these bags and literally said, we're not sure what we're going to do here. But our roadmap is a subjective roadmap, so roll with us. I think there would have been more trust built, but there's so much distrust that we inherently disbelieve now the value of a project. And I think the bar is higher now for crypto projects to have a viable business model than if someone came up to me and said, Grant, you got 10K, I got 10K. I got 10K to invest right now. And they'd say, Grant, I got this NFT project. That's what I know about it. Versus I've got a coin laundry. That's what I know about it. I coin laundry all day.
Or
And
Bitcoin ATM.
coin ATM or well, maybe even a Bitcoin ATM. Yeah. Because and Jarrett gives me crap from not crypto bros all the time. He's like, "Why are you on real estate? Real estate's a Web 2 model." I'm like, "A, you don't understand real estate if that's what you think." The way people handle real estate is kind of Web 2, but honestly, the Web 3 promise, the value of the Web 3 promise loses traction. Not because we're not in a bull run, but because every person I talk to very rarely has a viable business model.
Yeah.
You've said that from one of the first conversations we ever had. I think one of the
Yeah.
first things you said to me is, I'm just learning. I'm really disappointed by NFT NYC because I'm learning that everyone in this industry is broke.
Yeah, we all blew it. We blew our chance. We were like, basking in our self-importance and how we were going to change the world, and um, realizing that there's many more factors to the world than just what good people think should happen. Um, we're all held together by lots of different glues, I guess, and maybe that's like philosophically what I mean when I say interoperability is like, you know, in a decentralized world where we're all our individual nodes and our organizations and communities, everything this is an individual node, like it's gonna bump up against other things. So if you're not
Yeah.
even thinking of like relationships and how that's going to affect all sorts of things, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, people get way too insular. And even in like NFT communities, there's that tribalism. Like, I mean, we talk and see about that all the time. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just I feel like I have so much to say on this, and also don't want to like discourage people.
No.
But I would also, I would also tell people like look back to the actual Renaissance, right? I mean, like, what were
Mm.
creative people making money back then? Were they?
They were funded by
Uh,
the Medicis, that's for sure.
if they were funded by the right people, they were. And I mean, like, and even something like Doodles, like, or Bored Apes, for example, the reason Bored Apes had so many people on board was because you had a few key members in the beginning that you knew those people had access to the best IP attorneys, the
Yes.
best
Yes.
technologists, the best entertainers, the
Mm-hmm.
best sound mixers, visuals. I mean, it was that industry creating it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I mean about like having a flexible roadmap. Like even Bored Apes, like they changed a lot. They
Mm-hmm.
they maneuvered, and and even when people would give them crap, like when they launched ApeCoin and all of that, it
Sure.
was like, if you don't think these people don't expect to be in a courtroom at some point, like you're out of
Yeah.
your mind. They're
Yeah.
prepping for it.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, they're
preparing
prepped.
for it. Yeah.
It's totally true. So, I mean, I kind of believe, back to your point real quick, there's some disappointment with the level of tribalism, for example, within NFT world for sure. I am my penguin and my penguin is me. I mean, like, it's out there. But at the same time, what we know about mass movements long before the internet, long before crypto, is that it is the tribalism. There is an exclusive component to every movement. And it varies in scale and size and boundary, but it's kind of its greatest strength and weakness, and it's kind of a narrow pass to I guess to pass through, a narrow valley to pass through of when is it the right time to be tribal and when is it too much. And I think what I like about Doodles is it's tribal, but it has a very inclusive, positive message. The Bored Apes were very rude. It was a boys' club. It was a frat instead of an abundant tribe, if that makes sense. So, is there any tribalism, any level of tribalism that belongs in this idealistic, decentralized world? What sort of tribalism is good?
I mean, for me, I think when you're developing your core team and like developing like your constitution, if you will, for your core
Mm,
values, you need to, it's hard to do that with a lot of people. Um,
mm,
so I mean, if you're in a serious project that really wants some like long-term impact and staying power, you need to start there. And then like you said, like what Doodles is doing, like empower your community to be
mm.
creators. And that's where I
Ooh.
think That's
Yeah.
really where people struggle the most because, you think of a classic brand, like, yeah, a soft drink wants you drinking their drink, but they don't want you voting on their recipe. They don't want you voting on production procedures. I mean,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
they want you just like, don't ask questions, don't go deep, just drink the drink and
Yeah.
post your photos to social media with you
Yeah,
like
project
slurping.
yourself into this, but don't actually participate. Project yourself
Right.
into it and consume. Yeah.
Yeah, project but don't participate. That's like a really good way of saying that. Whereas I see right now, and I consider it a responsibility, honestly. I mean, I'm in an education space with everything I've done so far. And it's like if you want to launch an NFT project, to me, the first thing you need to do is have all the members, like, I usually settle around like, okay, a core team's going to be like 5 to 10 people, let's say. And then from there, we're going to onboard like 25 to 50. That's like my first number I'm thinking about. And all like between 25 and 50, and it can be less. But I mean, the constitution these people are agreeing to by even purchasing an NFT or being given it, whatever, is that like you're going to learn the tools and you're going to upload content that is meaningful to our like thing
Mm,
here, right? And it doesn't matter, like whatever you do, like partnerships are huge. And again, like
yeah.
that whole idea of interoperability, like um let's say you're developing like an ecotourism project, you want to
Mhm.
start thinking, um who are all the people that make this current economy go round, tour guides, housing, Airbnb owners, whatever it is. And then like, how do I,
Mm,
so I'm going to empower them to make content. I want to keep it as decentralized as possible. I want to keep it as Web3 as possible so that they're onboarding the next set of users.
mm,
And then as leaders, as the core team, you have to, and ENS actually does a really good job of describing this in their like white paper and stuff. The point is to get to a hands-off point as a core
yeah.
team and as a leader where you're just, and I think one show we talked about approaching things with wonder and awe.
Yeah.
You have to look at your community that way, like, oh my gosh, look what they're doing. Look what
Yeah.
they're, and it can't necessarily be like they're not doing it right. Like, it's the
Yes.
same thing. Like, did you have kids to turn them into you, or did you have kids to have them have their own life? And
Yeah,
same
that's
thing with the
good.
community. Like, were you just expecting them to be robots, or were you like actually interested in how they think, feel, all these other things?
So Sammy has two really good questions. I know Sammy, we worked briefly on, we were trying to give birth to a project called Humans in Harmony together, but I've followed Sammy's progression on LinkedIn, and if you don't follow her, Jackie, I highly recommend you do. She's a very intriguing cat. She's very creative, but she's also a consultant of sorts. And Sammy, forgive me if I'm butchering this from having watched from the sidelines, so feel free to correct me. But I would summarize Sammy as being like, not like a creative consultant, but an artist coach. Basically, a coach that helps people extract their creativity in their art, but she's bridging this into professional spaces that I've been paying attention to because the way she's going about it feels different. It feels like it's making an impact, but holding true to like the artist spirit. So this education you're talking about, Jackie, like just a few ways. And then her second question, I know we can answer pretty quickly: is there space for disruptive singers in the NFT space? And I think it's coming. And there might be some goofy ways to get at that. But this first question: how can artists be a part of the education you're talking about?
I mean, I think artists can, and I mean, typically the people I work with, it's like, what programs are you using right now? And that's for any artist. If you're a singer, how are you mixing your music? How are you producing it? If you are a painter, what medium are you working in? How are you producing it? What is your production process? And then
Mm,
how can we translate that to Web3 so that you're minting, publishing, distributing royalties, like learning the tech side of it. And I know artists get really overwhelmed by this part because they're
they
like,
do.
I just want to create. And like, trust me, I'm an artist at heart and I just want to do that too.
Yeah.
But you got to mind your P's and Q's when it comes to your business, and you got to just sit down and learn this stuff.
Yeah. She said, I like your interpretation. We're due for a catch up. It's just my sidebar. So I appreciate that, Jackie. Now, do we know like what is going on in NFT and crypto for singers other than just attribution? And we can't overlook attribution because that like is often the first hurdle for like creators like musicians that they get over. But do you know of any? I guess I don't
I
think of
think
any. But what do you
uh,
have?
MasterCard just came out with that cool program for, I know I'm like contradicting myself here.
Mastercard.
Yeah,
What?
MasterCard, I think it's called Artist Accelerator Program. But they were at NFT NYC. I listened
I
to their
missed
talk
that.
actually. And I have a friend over there, Volan Tozloff. He's over there and he's a great guy. And he was building like an audio platform before he got involved with them. So I know they have a really good team of intelligent people working on that. The other one that comes to mind is Audius. I was on Audius a long time ago. Actually, a client we onboarded a hip hop artist onto Audius. He did an NFT launch and had unlocked content. And actually, it was oh my god, we had such a good roadmap for that project. Like we came up with when you bought his track, if you bought the NFT, you got the instrumental version of his track, and then
Oh, cool.
you were encouraged to like lay your own bars down and whatever,
Oh, super
like
cool.
in order to go viral. The problem was that like at the time, like Snoop Dogg was dominating Sandbox, and I mean, if
Yeah.
you weren't like a top tier hip hop artist, nobody was like really purchasing your NFT, and
Yeah.
that's been some of the
Interesting.
disappointment working in this industry is that you can do everything technically right. You
Yeah.
can do everything. You can do all the marketing, all the Twitter spaces, and for whatever reason, you just don't take off.
Yeah. Well, and also, Sammy, it would be if you're still watching, it would be very interesting to know what you mean by disruptive. Um, and if that is a distinguishing factor for any of the, I guess, the tech happening in NFT space. What I've seen a lot of is tech around distribution. And what you're talking about, Jackie, is it's the heart of it might come from a marketing perspective, like rewrite your own bars on top of this, but it is kind of its own creative. You and I were talking about generative visual art. What was the artist that we were talking about? Um, what was the artist we were talking about?
Tyler
Just
Hobbs.
Tyler Hobbs's work, and there was a collaborative piece with a design engineer, and it was generative and it was interesting and just sold for some crazy amount of Ethereum, and more power to them. And visually, you could say he's experimenting with a style a little bit, but he's really experimenting with the engineer. So I think we need what we call disruptive singers. I think what we need is I want to see more experimentation on the creation end because the tech end, like the big NFT push for audio singers was like attribution, making sure that Napster wasn't stealing your rights. But you need other infrastructures to enforce attribution rights. And it's a big
Like a multi-sig wallet.
it's beyond that because I mean it's so like the right click and save. Is it really yours if I can right click and save it? And it's like, well, yes, I can track attribution, but what is the point if it's not enforceable? And enforcement is
I do like
unfortunately.
Sammy.
I know you'd like Sammy. Let's answer. I asked her what is a disruptive singer. You want to tackle this real quick?
I think so. To Sammy's point, she says that disruptive meaning content. The creatives are the ones having the hard conversations. And music's played a big part on how we think about consumerism and how we reclaim our minds again. Music
Mm,
frequency can bring us back to sanity. I totally agree with all that. And honestly, this is why I've branched out now and I'm working like almost solely with creatives at this point. I spent a lot of
mm,
time onboarding everybody into investing in cryptocurrency and learning that side of things. But I'm from the publishing world. I'm from the newspaper world, the media world. To me, the way we do this is by getting creatives to like care about your business, care about. I know this like sounds harsh, but creatives have been the latest client I had. He put it perfectly. He's like, I see so many artists looking for grants, but they don't want to start a business. And it's
yeah.
like, like that's, and even in Web3, everything is about getting grants to do something. It's not
Yes.
about actually creating the business to generate the revenue. And I know like money is such a charged subject,
I was
especially when
going
it
to
comes to
bring this
creative
up.
people.
I was going to bring
And
this up.
that's actually the hardest conversation to have is, what is money? Money is energy. Okay, well, what does that mean? What is the flow of that then? Um,
Hmm.
and just to answer her question too, how do artists do this? Web3 is about peer to peer. It's about collaboration. So the ways
Yes.
you can figure out, can I get 20 artists on this project? Can I do something crazy with layers? I know I'm music, but can I get a visual artist that's going to hook up just like wild imagery with this song? I mean, I see, and to me, the most important part of this is like, yeah, make sure all this is minted because if you want to know where
Hmm.
the future is, like my client just said this, if you want to know where the future is, go where the artists were 20 years ago. But the problem
Yes.
is
Yes.
the artists leave those areas and then they never get their due. They never get,
Yes.
what they started and did. Somebody just comes along, and appropriates it
Yeah.
and that's it.
It's funny you're making this point because, like, we're talking about money, and it was said recently. I don't care about money. I had to significantly overcome this. I was a
Talking about
missionary.
me 3 days ago.
I didn't want to out you. I wasn't going to out you, right?
I mean, I do, yeah. But to humanize me, this
Yeah.
was me.
Yeah, it was me. I mean, I was involved in the Christian church and in missionalism, and somewhere you pick up this idea that it's morally and spiritually superior to transcend this care about money. And I had a real awakening when we were in the Dominican Republic that we need money. Someone has to own the thought in these art circles, or I'll say spiritual circles, art being the physical manifestation of someone trying to live a spiritual life. And someone has to, you're welcome for that. You're going to process that one for a minute. um, Someone has to be responsible. Someone has to be the Medicis. Someone has to be the benefactor, if you will, that values it but realizes they don't move that way. Now, honestly, I have an artist's heart, and this is why my entrepreneur journey has been very difficult because I'm a doer. You know me as a doer, but I still struggle with this money versus art thing, and you're right about these artists. And so what artists do is, what I love about artists is, like Tyler Hobbs, they will see the technology, but they won't see what the developer, the engineer meant. They will just see it as an extension of their brush. And they go, you know what we could do? And everyone's like, settle the fuck down. And they're like, no, 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 we could just make it do like this crazy art. And you're like, what? And then you generate. And now, I mean, if you look, his stuff sells for 300 ETH,
Yeah, yeah,
which is what? I mean, times 2,000. I mean, it's 60 grand, 600 grand, something like that. It doesn't
yeah.
matter. It's phenomenal. And so these artists do this. And meanwhile, the money changers are like, well, I'd help you, but where's the net margin to me, son? They don't get the resources. And so the artists go, fine, screw it. I got to go work at Burger King. I got to do something else.
Yeah.
And they move on. So in essence, artists are prophets.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at, again, I mean, I think the Renaissance is just such a good period to look to right now for, how you're going to fit this in because, most famous artists probably didn't want to be sitting there doing portraits of, the king's 5 mistresses. But that's what
And
they
their
had to
poodle.
do. Yeah. And the dog symbolizing loyalty. Love that. Yeah, but I mean that's what they had to do, and for all of us, it's life is this precious game that we get to play, and um, yeah,
Yeah.
we're all walking through these things.
Well, and if you look at NFTs and no, if you look at crypto, it is a compressed version of what was basically the Renaissance, which started with the art and arced into institutional structures, right? And what we started with is NFTs, and that was artists trying to be artists. And what we did find is the collapse of NFTs was artists who didn't know how to also be business owners. And that's our biggest critique. But in all honesty, maybe we should spin it to a little bit of empathy and go, hey, you're very creative, Frank D. Gods. You're very creative, all of you. You're very creative, Bored Apes creators, but you just don't know shit about business. So we should have full stopped at the art stage for you and then brought in partnered with the business owners who are going to help carry this forward now. But we, in the past, had decades to sort out that, oh, that's right, this is all the artists leading the way, and they die off. And then we go, oh shit, they were brilliant. And then we bring in the business owners to do something with it. But we are in such an accelerated world. It's probably hard for us to see things move that quickly.
And when you say that, just real quick, I
Yeah.
see like, you have to, your CPA might do the most boring job in the world, but thank God for your CPA. I mean,
Yeah.
like everybody is bringing
Yes.
their own skills and talents, and what turns somebody on, whether that's MVPs and and other three-letter terms that they learned at their MBA and all this other stuff. Like if that's what gets them going, then
Yeah.
use that. That's their creative juice. That's their paintbrush or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and again, yeah, just bringing everyone together.
Yeah. Sammy here says, I have a
You
business
guys
too,
are
which she,
cool.
huh?
I like her. She said her latest comment was, "You guys."
Oh, oh, I thought you were saying this about her. I'm like, yeah, hype that
No,
girl.
she is. She is.
I have a business too, voice empowerment and authentic communication for leaders and businesses. So here's someone who's found her gift. She keeps it real and then finds that. And what's cool about this niche is so narrow, voice empowerment and authentic communication. The niche is so narrow that it'll succeed. She'll make good money staying this narrow, but she's focusing on singing and vocal inflection. And basically her doing this as a consultant and coach hones her skill for herself. She's been working on bringing it all together under her own performances, also looking for grants and investors. Pitch Deck is the worth and have a plan for courses, coaching, just looking for her, Medici. Very interesting, interested in Web3 and being a part of it. Absolutely. And then she goes on to say, and this, she's kind of answering her own question but from before. How can artists participate? And the education, artists can teach courses, hold workshops, events, collaborate with vendors. There are so many options if you work at it. You know what this makes me think of? You've done very high profile for DAC FP and groups like that. What we generalize is onboarding. And you and I hate how two-dimensional institutional pantsuit it feels to say that. But what I hear, and then for Sammy and anyone else watching this later, what Jacki has confessed to me, and I will out this about Jacki, she goes, I enjoyed that, but I always felt like I was stifling my creative side. And when Sammy says this, there's some parallel here to what you're talking about, that the art that Jacki has behind her right now is her own art. And my PFP that you find on Twitter or X, Jacki did. And it's this digital art that's awesome on Procreate, and it's cooler all the time. Hundreds of pieces of art. My point is who better to hold workshops at DAC FP? Screw having another financial person in the
Well,
room.
that's why we taught them to mint their own NFT at
Yeah.
yeah. And honestly, I mean, DAC FP has been so supportive of
Yeah.
my
Your
journey
art.
with this. And and I've been so fortunate too, because investing was not something I was strong in. I didn't, come from a background that did that. So I mean, I've picked up a lot of necessary things I needed to know about the world and really understand. And I think that's a lot where we get stuck as creatives too. I'm not speaking about anybody specifically here at all. I'm just saying, in a very mass generality, creatives get usurped to be the voice of somebody else's program all the time. And because you got to pay the bills, so you end up lending this super passionate, beautiful, creative thing to a cause you may or may not care about.
Yes.
But a lot of creatives, I would actually venture to say, become brainwashed into actually caring about that cause because they've now invested so much of like their sweat equity into this.
Yeah.
And so to bring that all together, like actually in Sammy's case, I was just thinking to myself, I found a tool yesterday that lets you mix music, and it was really neat because it's all color coded. Like I've tried to learn the piano before, it's just too overwhelming. Like you need a year just to figure out like
what's even going
the
on.
Instrument, yeah, like what even all this is before you even sit down and touch the keys. And anyway, this thing was like, the red key does the drum sets, the blue key does the horns, the whatever. And then like all you had to do was like put it into their beats or whatever. And so when I think of I'm going all over the place, but
That's okay.
one more thing to tie this together.
Yeah.
When I was in the print industry, I mean, I loved print. I loved classic print. We had like a museum at the newspaper that showed all the old linotype and the typesetters. And,
Mm,
we get the term, that we call them upper and lowercase letters. And
yeah.
it was because, capital letters were in the upper case. So when a typesetter picked up that letter, they went to the upper case to get that. And then when they were lowercase letters, they went to the lowercase. So when you have that knowledge, and then in kerning, like if you're
Yeah. Kerning.
a designer, these terms
Yeah.
because actual people were physically setting type and placing them in sizes and all of this stuff. So when you get an InDesign or like a design program, if you have that background, you're not so overwhelmed by like, what are these thousands of terms, kerning, letting, like all this stuff. But if you
Mm-hmm.
were a printer, you knew that. So I think of someone like Sammy who has a deep understanding of octaves and technique and all of these words. So, maybe 20, we'll go with the 80-20 rule. Maybe 20% of her clients are people that care about that and want to
Yeah.
hone their instrument, their projection of that. But 80% are going to want to learn that tool I just talked about that says red does drums, blue does horns, because they just want to produce something. And so
Yes.
you're, in a way,
Yes.
that is your Medici family. That is your, can you take all that stuff as an expert and teach people some mass produced thing that can please a lot of people at a lower rate, but then
Wow.
still take on those special clients that are really going to be like, your Whitney Houston, your force of nature, your
Yeah.
just talent.
And Sammy's here referring to this original comment you made just a few moments ago, Jackie. Yes, they lose their voice in the process. Basically, they hone their vocal cords or their inflection or their presentation. They hone it through a lifetime of trial and error and exposure and vulnerability and abuse, and then finding their authentic voice. And they hone it, and no one's paying the bills. And then suddenly, someone goes, "Hey, you talk nice," and then. And then like, here's $200 for the afternoon. You're like, fuck my life, but I'll take it. And and this is where we get the idea of the starving artist. And I feel like when you're describing what you just described, the difference between yellow makes horn happen, when you see that, it's like, yeah, and we need that. But like, what? There was a day, I don't know, you don't know this about me, Jackie, but I did stone sculpture. I do stone sculpture. And for me, I would have quote unquote made it when I'm able to take the afternoon it took to set up my tools, to oil my chisels, to prepare my hammer. And there was a very physical process of entering into that stone sculpture space. And the tools themselves were as sacred as the idea. And when I do acrylic painting now, even that was a step too far because someone else mixed the color, and I had gone through the process young of mixing my own colors and my own pigments. But like now, you can just go buy exactly that color with exactly that metal, and it's like cool. But when I walk up for that spiritual experience, I can feel it's a little less than when I had to mix my own pigment, and I worry. I know that there are very true sincere artists who connect with a lot of these electronic tools, but I think there's a challenge that when I can tell ChatGPT to write the code for that one algorithm that makes my art, it's going to be a minute, I think, before someone walks up to it with the same level of sacredness. And I think that these tools are going to take a while, but I think that we can't forget though that yellow make horn is how we all started, even with pigments, Crushed seashell make pearl color,
Well, and I mean, I guess to your point though, I mean, and I guess that's why I'm saying like, think about catering to that viral nature of technology through micropayments. I mean,
There you go.
it's not built to
Micro
last.
payment. I like that.
Viral things are not built to be. I mean, some things, are viral and they go down in history. Like the first YouTube video I ever saw was Grape Lady Falls. Do you remember it? Like, and I mean, there was a day when we used to be like, did you see that YouTube video? And everyone saw it. And now it's like, yeah, which one? Like, um,
Mm.
But I was going to say too, like we were talking about Zig Ziglar the other day, and I love the
Yes.
quote right on the front of his website is, "You can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other
Other
people
people
get what
get.
they want." And that's
Yeah.
really where everyone should start. I don't care what you do. If you help someone else get there, the
Yes.
clarity that will, and that's why I still work with clients. It's why I love working with clients, because my clients push me to learn things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, or maybe not a direction I would have went in
Mm.
otherwise.
So Sammy says here, and thank you for that quote. And for those who don't know, that Zig Ziglar quote is my number one takeaway. I spent years studying Ziglar. I went to his live concerts when he was still alive, 30,000 people in a room. But that quote is the one that stuck with you. You can have everything in life that you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. Thank you for sharing that. Sammy says, I'd love to talk. I'm putting together the finishing touches on a course, Voice of Influence, Command, Respect, Influence, and Authority in Your Voice. So I totally hear you on the 80-20 rule. My 20% of leaders want to go super deep and make a massive impact in the healthcare industry, which is her deeper niche. She does a lot of holistic well-being. You would like this about Sammy, big time, Jackie. I have several questions about how to get those Medicis in order to make a bigger impact. Let's just powwow offline and do this same thing, but just the three of us at some point. I
Yeah.
think that would be amazing. And then micropayments. Can you tell Sammy about micropayments, Jackie?
Yeah, so I mean that kind of is the world of NFTs, and what we open up to is that once you have minted something, or however many people you have on that token to distribute royalties to, you create that, you post it to X, let's say, and then
Hashtag Twitter. Yeah, yeah.
as that moves around or gets shared, there would be a micro payment going right back to that original wallet. Hopefully, if there's a bunch of creators, it's a multi-sig wallet or something like that. And then just automatically distributing those payments out. Because right now something
Yeah.
goes viral and you will never see a dime for it.
Sammy's like, I wasn't expecting you to read my news, read my letters. So, and real quick on micropayments, you're already seeing this in lots of places. To Sammy and to Emmy, creator who comes along and might watch this later. I mean, we're seeing this on platforms like X, hashtag Twitter, where, if you've crafted a really good Twitter thread and it added value, the abundance mindset says many people will start clicking on it, going through that. You can apply to the creator fund and they see how many times it's clicked it. Advertisers have paid to advertise on the space, so maybe there's 1 out of 20 of the retweets or subtweets is an ad, and it's, it'll say promoted or sponsored here, and just that placement pays, let's call it 20 cents. A micropayment is definitely small, but if you had a hit, and there's a big complaint about this because SoundCloud experimented with micropayments, and someone had some viral thing that went to like 1 million downloads. Well, because it was micropayments, they still only saw a couple grand in fees. So it has a long way to go. But in the micropayments way, I think, Jackie, that you're talking about it, it's peer to peer, which means there's no middlemen to grift, which means that you're seeing a larger proportion of those downloads direct to you. So one model is NFT Now, the periodical, and you can have a subscription, which is like $5 a month, or you can have your wallet connected, your MetaMask wallet, and you just approve, and then you read that article, and it's 50 cents. What's moment.so?
So I did like Moment. I haven't looked at their site in probably at least 6 months, but they were like a social media platform that was really figuring this out. And it was like everything you see is an NFT that was uploaded. And then they were track and tracing everything. I should actually just go to their about section. Our mission: 1 billion people with digital assets worth owning. They're a good platform. I hope this shout out helps them.
Yeah, definitely, Sammy. We'll follow up and talk about a lot of these details. And I'm going to take this moment real quick to shout out this Twitter, this person. So Jason Kofke was a childhood friend of mine. We lived near each other. He and I drew comics together. One of my first entrepreneurial ventures, he was doing a cart. He was hired like right out of high school to do, or maybe it was college, to do a comic book, a children's book called Jumping Monkey. And the founder was born dyslexic with reading issues, and Jason had dyslexia young. And so Jason was commissioned to do the art, and it was meant to help young people learn how to read who were dealing with dyslexia. I got hired when I moved back to my hometown with them to help with the art process. And there was a small group of 4 of us. And this was my first real taste of entrepreneurialism and seeing something make an impact in the world. Now, Jason Kofke went on to go to Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD. For anyone who's into arts, like they know, like SCAD and RISD are like up there, right? He went on to become a professor and an adjunct for SCAD in Atlanta and has continued to work with them. I think right now he might be in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. Get this, you would dig this guy, Jackie. He went on and got a grant to follow Shackleton's journey, but with an enclave of artists who captured Shackleton's journey to Antarctica. Guy's an awesome creative. But I just shared a link right here, this particular status. And Jackie, I will share it in our chat so you can just click it and grab a hold of it. There you go. Now, if you go to this, folks, and I'm going to bring this up on the screen as well, because I like this discussion we're having about old and new. Here, let me see if I got it right here. So Jason has a particular style that he went through a lot of his material in his time in SCAD. He was enamored with old things. And so he learned letterpress, Jackie. When you were talking about kerning and leading, he actually got old letterpresses and restored them to functional use and would put them to use. And then this is like an old Walkman he did, and you can see the magenta, the cyan, the black, the CMYK process. He's very much into the printing process. And if you click through his material, he went through like restoring broken Polaroid cameras, and he'd go through the artistic process of recreating them to understand how this mechanism creates this art. And I thought just putting it on your radar, you might find it a bit interesting, because there's not only what we're talking about, this art of art, there's an art and old art. And I like how Web3 is forcing us at this pace to talk about this very topic of not just art, but creators and creatives. And I do think, Sammy's original question, how can artists participate in the education?
I mean, honestly, you have to, like, my first job as a graphic designer was working in the pre-press department. So you just got to learn how things are produced. How is this produced? Yep, learn the tools.
Yellow is horns, so you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is a good note to bail on. What do you think?
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate this conversation, Sammy. It was wonderful having you interact with it. And music is definitely pushing things, probably more so than visual arts, I would say right now, which is kind of interesting. You think the things going viral on TikTok and Instagram and all that, all tied to music. So and people now, they're launching music right to Spotify that day. They're not waiting to put albums together anymore. They're not. I mean, the production process of music is going through a massive change right now. Yeah.
And we need to be sure that we don't that we don't judge these things as not working because we see growing pains. I think what people forget is that we have the internet to critique people real time. So an artist, this hip hop artist you're talking about, they publish and it doesn't go viral. And we suddenly judge them. Maybe they're not good enough. But we forget how many paintings a painter has to paint before someone goes, "You're brilliant." We forget how much of a film ends up on the cutting room floor before we go, "Okay, this is the gold." And here's the thing: someday I want to gather up all that detritus and put it in a pile and shellac it, and point to the Mona Lisa on the wall of that particular artist, and say, "You see that? That is the raw material of that."
Yeah.
The nights alone, the broke ass nights, the broken sculptures. I can't tell you. I had this one sculpture, and I just whacked it wrong, and the thing broke right in the middle.
Ugh, heartbreaking.
I had all my childhood art sold by a family member who was a meth addict, all of it. And all the heartache, all of that, what we might call the refuse of life, we could generalize the pain, that is the raw material. And so this very talk has really cautioned me to quit being so judgy of where Web3 is at, because you know what? It's the artists, the Frank D gods. They're such a frat boy. You know what? That's a nerd artist who really is in over their head from an executive standpoint. They're navigating, they've built community, but they're hitting their lid. I need not be a judge. I probably need to offer a hand instead. You've really
Well,
schooled me today. Go ahead.
I think too, like just a parting thought, I think for
Yeah.
creative people, um, we're very passionate. So we get
Yeah.
really like, intimately involved with these things we're creating. And I think creatives can be very judgmental too, especially like when we're talking about like business and money and all of these things. And the same way painters had to study, they were understudies first, they had to
Yeah.
copy other people's styles
Just copy.
until,
Yeah.
yeah, until they actually had the freedom to do their own thing. For Picasso to go into his blue period or his cubist moment or whatever, and the same way, I kind of feel the same way about tech. Like, you got to respect these developers, and like Web3 will humble you. I mean, stuff we take for granted all day, every day, that my passwords are saved and this seamless experience and da 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 da. When you get in Web3 and like things, you got to think for a minute before you hit the send button and make sure you're on the right network. And I mean, it humbles you, and actually, you start to respect the technologists and everything they go through to make your life so damn easy. I mean,
You're not lying. If I could do a single click and liquidate my wallet, like you're absolutely right. It's humbling. I mean, it's like me whacking a sculpture just one time in the wrong spot and losing my focus. You're right. I mean, people get their wallets drained. You're too funny, man. Well,
well, I've been
Jackie,
through it all.
I really appreciate this talk. I was not expecting it to go this route, but it's been very delightful. So I think this is what we want our shows to be like, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Everyone, check us out periodically. We're building in the open on Mondays. We try, give us grace, to talk about our project, our experiment, allispossible.shop, and how we're using automation. But I think we actually derive far more joy out of whatever the F you call this Thursday's show. So we'll take it. Have a great one, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye.